is Talk with Jon. Looking forward to being with you here today. I will be introducing my guest momentarily. Uh, but just so you're all aware, I am bringing on my guest because, first of all, I feel his knowledge of geo-military type stuff is top notch. He probably is the best. Um, and I love having him on. He does a great job. That's David Pine. I'll be bringing him on momentarily. But first, want to say thank you to KMMU.org, as well as want to point you to KMMU.org. Please go there and subscribe to both, or actually not both, but all three: Rumble, YouTube, and X. Please do that. Go there, and you'll be able to listen to and view previous shows. Also, all of our other great shows like The Gowd Crowd, Political Head Trauma, and many others. Christina Bogus also is on. So we've got a number of Trent Christensen does the show as well. So a lot of great people that have programs here on KMMU. Please like and subscribe, and that helps get the word out. So without further ado, let me get to my show intro. Let's get this show off to a proper start. I hope my show is a gift back to my forefathers, the founding fathers, and may it be an acceptable token to our Father above. Then the show mantra: where there is liberty, there is the Spirit of Christ. Where the Spirit of Christ is, there will be liberty. And the greater the Spirit of Christ, the greater liberty will be. Now, let me do this. Let me get on David Pine. Bring him on. David, thank you for joining me, my friend.
Thanks for having me on, Jon.
My pleasure. Love having you on. And we're lucky enough to get you on 2 times in 1 month. And we'll see if we can get to your Substack. But first, let me read your bio real quick to the audience. David T. Pine, Esquire, is a former U.S. Army Combat Arms and Headquarters staff officer who was in charge of armaments cooperation with the former Soviet Union, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and the Americas from 2000 to 2003, with an MA in National Security Studies from Georgetown University. He is the former president and current deputy executive director of the Task Force on National and Homeland Security. He recently served as defense and foreign policy advisor to former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. He has also co-authored the best-selling book Catastrophe Now: Last Chance to Avoid an EMP Disaster. His new book, Restoring Strategic Deterrence, will be published most likely later this year, and he serves as the editor of the Real War newsletter at dpyne.substack.com. That's dpyne.substack.com. All right. He also, I want to mention this for sure, he also has been a contributor to the National Interest, and you can find him daily, many times daily, if not multiple times a day, on X at America First CON for conservative. All right. If you weren't so prolific and awesome, I wouldn't have so much to read. So
well, I've been doing most of my writing on X lately, so I'm a little bit behind on the Real War Substack. I'm trying to remedy that tonight.
Well, you do have a lot on X, and I want to say thank you for doing those postings. I hope we have time to get all of that. So there's 2 areas that I really want to cover. There's two portions to the talking points that I sent you that I want to cover. I want to cover domestic and I want to cover international. And I think let's just kind of cover domestic real quick. I want to get your thought process. I'm assuming you also talk to others that are kind of in the know. So I want to get what you feel, what you believe to be true, and what you think's going on. So let's start on the domestic side first, if that's all right with you, David.
Sure.
And just realized I need to do one thing. There we go. I want to know kind of your overall thoughts on the TSA and this issue that we've got going on at the airports. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I experienced it firsthand. I was going to go on a cruise, and then Trump's forever war in Iran scared me out of the cruise. I canceled the cruise and went to California to visit my parents. I didn't want to leave the country because I knew the threat of Iranian cyber attack isn't going away. It's likely to get higher as the war goes on. Yeah, the TSA delays, we experienced some major TSA delays on the way there, nothing on the way back. It was really interesting at the LA airport to Salt Lake. But
So let me clarify, flying from Salt Lake out, is that correct? Did you fly from Salt Lake out? There were issues. How long were your delays?
Well, it wasn't super bad. I mean, the line was longer than I'd ever seen. They were saying it was about 35 minutes. So not horrific. And we've heard horror stories of 3 to 5 hours. LaGuardia and some other airports. But I think it's just really ridiculous that the Democrats froze out all Homeland Security Department spending. When they were targeting ICE, and ICE was the one thing that's fully funded through the end of the year. So, it was really ridiculous. It was like they had to show that their far left radical base, they were doing something. And the way they thought they could do that is to pretend to defund ICE when in fact they were doing nothing of the kind. And they've only heard Americans. They've heard TSA obviously going without pay for I don't know months. I guess they got their first paycheck. It was a partial paycheck. Thanks to Trump's executive order. But it's really been outrageous that the Democrats have defunded the Department of Homeland Security during a time of war. I mean, at least when Trump started this unnecessary war, they should have said, okay, well, Trump's taking us to war. We could have massive terrorist strikes from Iran on the U.S. at any moment. Let's fully fund that, and we'll revisit this after the war, or at least fund it until the war ends. That's what responsible members of Congress would have done, but the Democrats are far from responsible.
Well, let me put it this way. I just like when there was in Minnesota, you had those people that were out, going against ICE. They called it protesting, but really getting over aggressive, in my opinion, with ICE. And they had exactly what they wanted to have happen. I wouldn't be surprised if someday we find in emails where it says, we hope somebody gets killed, and they got 2 people killed. And I firmly believe Tim Walz went whew, when the first one happened, and went, boy, this is going good for me when the second one happened, as well as the Minnesota mayor, whose wife is involved in that, and I think making millions from the NGOs that sponsored that. I want to say I'm pulling that out of the memory bank, so I could be wrong with the dollar amount, but I do remember she was working with an NGO. So TSA, I think they want something to happen. I really think the Democrats will be happy if something happens and will be disappointed if it doesn't.
Well, that's a long time Marxist playbook, thing is to, incite violent responses from the police or the military, whenever there's some kind of revolution or, sowing some kind of seeds of radicalism. That's really the focus. And it's kind of J6 in reverse. I don't think anyone that went to the J6 protests anticipated violence. The only ones that I probably were the FBI informants, of which there are, I don't know, 250, I think, something outrageous like that. They were trying to incite the crowd to violence. But on the Democrat side, we've seen this happen, dozens and dozens of times. I mean, it's like dozens of times a year. It's not even news when there's a trans terrorist that shoots up a Christian school or, elementary school kids. It's like, well, that's what they always do. That's what trans terrorists do, right? and so the radical Democrats, it's just not even newsworthy anymore. They just they do it all the time.
So I'm going to go to the well, John, what do you think? Talk with John. What do you think the answer is? I think TSA needs to be taken completely. Let's defund it. Let's get rid of it. Let's have the airlines be responsible for that themselves, or the airports themselves be responsible for it. Let's take it at least to the airport level, and if not to the airline level. And I will let the them fight over that. But the bottom line is, it's a terrible system. It's designed to be inconvenient. It's designed to get people groped, upset, and annoyed, and orient to travel.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think that's a great idea. Privatizing TSA security and make our our airplane tickets might go up a bit, but of course we'd save money at the taxpayer federal level, and it couldn't be politicized. So yeah, I mean, if the Democrats can keep doing that, that's really the easiest solution, isn't it?
I don't even know that it would go up that much, especially if you made it happen at the individual airline level. They how much pork is going through the TS? The government never does things cheaper, never does things better and cheaper. At least I can't think of a single thing that they do better and cheaper. Now, do we have to have a military? Do we have to have a military? Absolutely. It's constitutional. That's the way that it should be. And it's constitutional for us to have a postal service. But I'm going to say the FedEx and Amazon are doing a much better and much cheaper, effective way than the post office. So I think that goes to show that can be done by someone else. All right. Next point. No King's protest. Has it been a bad look for the Democrat Party in your mind? And I'm going to go into with the No King protests. I believe it's NGO funded, and I'm noticing a lot of communist flags.
Yeah, so I remember, I'm old enough to remember we had the George Floyd protests in May of 2020, and obviously I didn't attend any of those, but I sure watched the coverage and saw the disgusting scenes of police cars being overturned. I won't even just talk about the details, but set on fire and folks with guns and lots of arrests, and no one went to jail or prison. It seems no prosecutions for thousands of injured and killed cops all across the country. That were bailed out by Kamala Harris and folks like that, but. No Kings. The reason I mentioned that is because I did some research and I found out that the protest in Salt Lake, the riot, was funded by or organized by an organization called the Revolutionary Communist Party of the United States, and this is like more radical than the communists. Essentially, I mean, they want to establish, they think China is too liberal, so they want to establish, I guess. Cuban communist style overthrow of the U.S. government, but I think those are a lot of the types of folks and organizations that organize the No Kings protests, in league, of course, with the Soros type organizations.
Yeah, I would agree. My opinion is this is something that's being ginned up, and in LA, they had some gal go up and spray paint. I think it was Kill Ice. I wish I could remember the exact verbiage, but she went on the side of a building and spray painted, the silhouette of a scope. Yeah, not good. So bottom line is, this is being done by the NGOs. I also believe, if I remember correctly, Alex Soros group is part of this. So, I mean, the Soros group is part of the NGOs and funding this. And it's kind of interesting how it's all the big protests are done in Democrat areas. It doesn't happen at the Utah County Capitol, right? The it doesn't happen in Provo. It happens in Salt Lake. Now, yes, okay, John, the capital of Utah is Salt Lake City. But the bottom line is it's not happening in heavy Republican areas. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's not.
Because they would be arrested, in my opinion, and tossed in jail, and they would not be let off.
Yeah, I mean, Republican, red states have a reputation for, law and order, and of course there are blue cities in Republican states, as the case is with Salt Lake, and we have a very, kind of left-leaning radical mayor traditionally in Salt Lake, but yeah, I think red states do a better job of keeping those folks in check overall.
All right. So next, let's. I think that covers everything on the domestic front. Is there anything you would like to cover
on the domestic front, or any issue
on the domestic front? On the domestic front.
Well, I it's kind of interconnected, of course, but the CNN came out with a poll showing that Trump is the most unpopular president with the lowest approval rating of any president in modern day history at this point during his second term. And of course, the Iran war isn't the only reason for that. A lot of it is cost of living, but the cost of living is being driven up by the Iran war. So
Right.
President Trump is committing political suicide for the Republican Party, and I believe is the Democrats' best ally in forging a Democrat electoral majority that I think could endure for a generation. I think he's destroying J.D. Vance's and Marco Rubio's chances of being elected president in 2028, guaranteeing a full Republican takeover of the White House and at that point, and of course both houses of Congress by a really quite a wide margin. I expect in November, with probably about 6 Senate seats and 40 House seats taken in the Democrat column.
I'm going to make a note to myself because I've got to ask you this. But let's get a little bit further in. Speaking of polls, I'm gonna go to a couple polls that I have pulled up real quickly, and I want to read those. Let's see if I can get that. Oh boy. Part of my concern is I'm going to lose my my spot. I probably am, so I'm going to have to put this on silence a little later. So here's some polling that was done. So March Harvard Caps Harris poll. Trump approval drops 3 points to 43% amidst worsening views on economy and support of Iran war split along partisan lines. 45% of voters say their personal financial situation is worsening at a 5-point increase from last month, and 71% think inflation is above 3%. 75% of voters think the U.S. is winning the war on Iran, and 3 in 5 voters say Iran is a national security threat. 51 support the U.S.-Israel airstrikes on Iran regime, and 54% say the campaign is justified. Support for airstrikes is splitting along partisan lines, with 79% of Republicans, including 80% of self-identified MAGA voters and 80% of Trump 2024 voters supporting it, while only 46% of independent and Democrat voters have favorable views. 65% of voters oppose the DHS shutdown. I guess that doesn't really apply. So, as you were saying, these numbers are starting to not look good for Donald Trump. And I completely agree with your sentiment. I think this is looking really bad for Republicans. And why well, John, the Republicans are just as bad as the Democrats. I don't agree with that. This is my personal opinion, but I think it will bear out. If we get a Republican or Democrat Senate, Democrat House, and Democrat presidency, we will see the trans back and all of those other things that are, in my opinion, far worse for the country than even what we're looking at Iran. Now, I could be wrong on that, but I don't think I will be. And a lot of the good social program, the good things that Donald Trump has done is going to be overborne. David, your thoughts?
Yeah, so Jesse Kelly gave he's a former Fox News host, I think, and he gave an interview with Megyn Kelly. She's really an America First conservative champion like Tucker Carlson, and she's been at the forefront of helping to lead opposition to Trump's crazy forever regime change war in Iran. And he basically said, what's going to happen is, Trump's war in Iran is going to transform America's political system. So that he calls the Democrats communists, but he basically said we'll be subjected to communist rule for the next 10 to 20 years. And I think that's accurate. I call it Democrat socialist rule, but I think they'll be able to establish a one party Democrat socialist state that's going to be much more authoritarian, much more fascistic, communistic, and it's going to make life miserable for us and folks like me and you. May not have the freedom of speech. Even Trump's trying to censor freedom of speech. He's going after Tucker Carlson with bogus CIA and investigations, FBI investigations, other supporters of America First that have been his longtime allies. Obviously, he chased Marjorie Taylor Greene out of Congress and made an enemy out of her when she was, she was almost sycophantic before, like Sean Hannity, but she's really exposed herself as a true American patriot. Behind the scenes, obviously, I think all along she was, kind of questioning Trump's moves, but he never got really crazy liberal and neocon until recently. So a lot of folks like me supported Trump up until he started this war for the deep state, essentially, and are really frustrated and have withdrawn their support for President Trump because he's doing the bidding of the neocons, obviously Israel and Netanyahu and the deep state. And that's not what we voted for. We didn't vote for a forever regime change war. And Fox News did a poll early on in the war, and it asked, are you feeling that Trump's war in Iran is making you more safe or less safe? And 29% said more safe. So the vast majority of Americans know, and there have been multiple polls since that have said the exact same thing. They know that Trump's war is making them less safe, and they're more anxious and more stressed out with the cost of living. It's not just fuel prices. Here in Utah, as of last week, a week ago, Utah gas prices had increased by 66%. I expect that to go up probably beyond $6. I think we'll see over $6 here in Utah in the next couple months. Trump reportedly is kind of running scared. He's trying to end the war in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but he doesn't know how to do it because Iran is insisting we agree to their peace terms, not his.
Okay. Okay. So follow-up question: do you think he can do it? I know you said you don't think he. Okay. Let me go into my questions. My suspicion is Trump is being manipulated. And John, what do you mean by manipulated? Trump is his own man. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu came out and said, "Do you think I can control Trump?" No, I don't think you can control him by saying, "Donald Trump, this is what you will do." No, I don't think he can do that. But what I do think is, Benjamin Netanyahu, I do think you are part of your intelligence. You've been in part of Israeli intelligence for years, and you have a lot of the training, and you have your psychologists that come to you and say, this is how we get Donald Trump to do what we want him to do. Just like I firmly believe Vladimir Putin does it. I know that we do it with other leaders, right? I mean, it's not like this is unknown how that you bring into your intelligence groups. It's not like you don't have a bunch of psychologists telling you how to help the other person along. Another one that I think does a great job of manipulating President Trump from another world leader source is, I believe, President Xi does a job of building go. But I believe within his own cabinet, I think he's been given bad intelligence. He's been given good intelligence, apparently, by the I think his military leaders in general told him, don't, if we listen to Joe Kent, if we believe Joe Kent. Now, let me make this a qualified statement. I don't know I can buy Joe Kent 100%. John, why do you say that? Do I think he's probably a good actor? Yes, I do. But let's, just like Donald Trump, Joe Kent was a Democrat right up until not very long ago when he decided to become MAGA. So I know I've thrown out a lot at you, but do you think he's being led? And do you think there's any chance that he can be pulled out of this?
Well, we know that Mike Waltz, a former national security advisor, and also Lindsey Graham have both gone to Netanyahu and said, look, this is how to manipulate Trump. You say it's going to be easy. You're going to be the greatest president ever. Everyone's going to love you. You'll be remembered in history as the only president that defeated Iran and all this other crap, and feed his ego. And then, of course, there's rumors, some very substantive rumors that Netanyahu is blackmailing Trump over the Epstein files, that in fact Trump did, take advantage of young girls, teenagers, not super young. But there's some of that's come out. At least it's been leaked by there's been two stories, one by a Democrat, one by an independent, that have come out on different incidents that Trump may or may not have committed on that front. But clearly, he really covered that up, and Netanyahu has the goods on him. But Netanyahu also has, this is well known. It's known to folks that pay attention to this type of stuff. But basically, the White House uses an Israeli version of Signal, and it allows you to archive all the Signal messages, and they find that very convenient. The problem is the company that does it has all the databases in Israel and is connected to Israeli intelligence. So all the White House messages from the president on down, we don't know for certain the president uses it, but the vice president and the cabinet use it. And all those messages are going straight to Netanyahu's desk, and he knows who the pro-Israelis are and the other folks are. And of course, we heard a story by I don't know if it's the New York Times, but one of those newspapers reported that J.D. Vance had some very strong words for Netanyahu, basically a little bit of a shouting match, like he and Zelensky did back in February of last year, where he railed on Netanyahu for telling Trump that it was going to be an easy war, be over in a week. Iranians would overthrow their government, welcome U.S. Aggressors as liberators, and of course none of that happened. I think J.D. Vance, he has said some stupid stuff lately that are in support of Trump's war, because I think he's a politician, and politicians like Trump, tend to try to appease the political powers, whatever they might be. But of all the politicians I've seen, I think he's the least corruptible.
Speaking of J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance
is the least corruptible in your opinion?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I also think they're feeding Donald Trump the intelligence that the pro-Israel neocons want him to receive, and they are doing everything that they can to keep the non-pro Israel information. This is one thing that, let's get back to what Joe Kent kind of said on his way out. And my understanding is the vast majority of the top leaders of the military said there's something like a 92% chance that if you go after Iran, the Strait of Hormuz is going to get closed, and this is going to lead into boots on the ground. And Donald Trump, we heard nothing from him saying other than, we're going to be able to hit him with our planes. And my question to you is, who do you think is giving him that information who do you think is giving that information that it's going to go well versus his military leaders? And in what I just stated.
You're absolutely correct. It was I think it was the Gray Zone, where the newspaper or website that reported that CIA Director John Radcliffe was basically Israel's stenographer. Basically, he would receive Israeli intelligence reports on the alleged Iranian threat and any imminent threat, and he would repackage that, just really the exact same crap and feed it to the president. And we were told when Tulsi Gabbard was nominated and confirmed as in a role as director of national intelligence that she would be briefing the president every day with the president's daily brief, and that hasn't happened. It looks like it's CIA. She's been basically frozen out of anything war related, war threat related, and so the president is spoon fed Israeli intelligence on a daily basis. And as you mentioned, there are factual reports that we have now that the president's team has been censoring any information about massive U.S. casualties. They're covering up the extent of the war dead, the war wounded, in terms of the U.S. military forces. Massive destruction, the destruction of 13 U.S. Military bases in the region that are either destroyed or have been rendered unusable by U.S. military forces. The destruction of phased array radars, THAAD missile defense systems, literally, probably on the order of 12 to 26 billion just in terms of destroyed weapon systems alone that Iran has inflicted. And it's really, we've never seen anything like it since the Japanese attacked us at Pearl Harbor and took over or destroyed multiple U.S. military bases at the same time. So what's really going on here is not only has President Trump started a major regional war in the Middle East that his supporters, like those that I debated on the 20th at the University of Utah, claim is not even a war, but this is actually a great power war between the U.S. and a near-peer adversary. That's really we haven't seen since the Korean War, when the U.S. troops went head to head with the Communist Chinese.
I'm going to come back to a little bit more. I want to go to, if you don't mind, I want to play an excerpt from the Ben Shapiro show, actually from a different show, but they did. And go ahead.
Can I just interrupt you? I forgot to talk about Joe Kent, if you allow me. Joe Kent, I think he, of course, was the director of the Counterterrorism Center, probably fifth ranked under Tulsi Gabbard at the under the ODNI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and he is really an American first conservative hero. And you're absolutely right. He was a Democrat until around 2020, but he is really his guiding principle, I think, was anti-war, essentially. And our Republicans obviously were the party of war for many years during the Bush years, the neocon years. With Trump obviously was really good during his first term, a good peace president. But his letter was just really, really a perfect indictment of President Trump and how he's been manipulated by Netanyahu. And I think he did us a great service.
All right, I want to play this because I do want to come back to that, and I sent you a number of points that I wanted to talk about, and I don't know whether we'll get to them all, but I know that we cover that a little bit more, and I think we can get a little bit more detailed on it. But I want your thoughts to the counter of the neocons that are and the America's Second group.
Miracle last, yeah. Israel first.
Israel first, America next, maybe. This is the Mark Levin, and Donald Trump came out and said on Saturday night, tune into Mark Levin because he's going to tell you what for, basically. And Ben Shapiro is also a mouthpiece for that group. And let me let me. I'll get into my thoughts on Ben Shapiro. I don't think. Yeah. Let's play this first, and I want you to respond to it. But he starts out with "if you" is the first few words that he says.
Historically, the American people actually have some patience.
Can you hear that?
I can hear it.
Okay.
Our shortest wars were longer than the current conflict. The Persian Gulf War involved 43 days of active operations. The Kosovo NATO air war lasted for 78 days. Even deposing Noriega in Panama in the late 80s, that lasted for 6 weeks. And also, Americans are not dumb. We don't believe that if you're involved in military activity, you're not going to lose anybody. Because, again, if necessary military activity can only be pursued at zero cost, there's no use in having a military. Literally, the point of a military is to do hard and dangerous things. That's why our military members are heroes. That's because they're willing to undertake that sacrifice for a greater good.
Do you think this was always a trap, or do you think that, could have?
Okay. Your thoughts to that statement.
Well,
the heroes are out going and doing it. What's that?
I think he's right. You expect that war. On one level, he's right. In war, you expect people to die. And President Trump was asked about this. He was asked a couple weeks ago, do you think the American people should be worried about, terrorist strikes against the U.S. that could result in dead Americans? And he said, I guess so. People die in war. So he admitted it's a war. Folks like Ben Shapiro may or may not admit it's a war. I know a lot of my friends don't.
Military action or something along that, or political action.
President Trump has said dozens of times since the war began, it's a war. And then he kind of jokingly backtracked and said, well, I'm not supposed to call it a war because that would require a congressional declaration of war, and we don't want that. So we're trying to avoid calling it a war. But he basically admitted it's a war over and over again. He said, we won the war. 5 times he said that on March 11th, and somehow, and since then, he said that the USS.
If we won the war, then why is it still ongoing? Sorry.
Yeah,
continue.
Exactly.
Sorry.
USS Abraham Lincoln, he said, was attacked by 101 Iranian supersonic missiles traveling at a speed of Mach 3.28 from 70 different directions, and he said basically said that. He thought our carrier was going to get sunk and that it had to flee away. And this is from an enemy that he claims had its military capability 100% destroyed. It's like a direct quote from what he said 2 weeks ago. So, and not only that, the Strait of Hormuz, he was asked, so are you going to end the war? Are you going to insist that the Strait of Hormuz be reopened up by Iran before you end military operations? He said, that's not our problem. That's not our concern. We don't need that oil. And so we're going to let the Europeans deal with it. So basically, he just conceded that Iran gets to keep full control of the Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz for at least many months and perhaps indefinitely after the war ends.
So there's a number of things besides oil that is going to harm the United States. It's not just oil. It's also fertilizer, different nitrogen, different things are gathered. Also helium. Well, John, helium for balloons. It's also for making silicone chips, a huge part of that process. So there's a lot of things that come from that region that make the world go. And I have big concerns with us having this strait closed down. And I'm going to say there. So not only am I, when I'm talking with people, am I very frustrated with Donald Trump right now when it comes to what's happening in Iran? I would say borderline, I'm angry with him. I am getting very close to being very angry with him, calling it anger. But I've also say I'm extremely ticked off at my Congress. This is something that they've abdicated and obfuscated since the end of World War II. Korea, we didn't make that a declared war. We didn't do it with Vietnam. We didn't do it with any of the Gulf Wars. We didn't do it with Panama. Bottom line is, Congress has said it's the president's fault. both with Republicans and with Democrats. And my problem with that is, and why does one of the reasons that Congress doesn't want to declare a war, and why don't they want to push hard and go that far? They have a bunch of lobbyists in oil lobbyists, military lobbyists that are like, no, we don't want a declared war. Why? Because one of the things that happens with the declared war is you can set pricing. We have tons of oil here in the United States. We're not really bringing in oil from other countries, and you price fix. You say, hey, no, we're going to keep oil at the same price here for the United States. That is just one reason why they don't want to declare war. David, your thoughts?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've raised this as well. With every passing day this war goes on, the more lies I hear from Trump, the more I dislike him. I used to love them. I'm sure you recall a year ago I was telling my wife that every day was foreign policy Christmas for me, because I turn on Fox News and he'd be doing exactly what I wanted to do, exactly what I campaigned for and fought for my whole life, exactly what he promised to do. So he kept his promises for 3.5 months, and he started going off the deep end slowly but surely, and threatening nuclear war against Russia in July, and signing that horrible minerals deal with Zelensky on his terms that screwed us over, and 10-year defense pact with Ukraine, and funding and fighting Biden's war, and then of course there was the 12-day war that he helped Israel do, that no president was prior to Trump was stupid enough to do that, but at least he did it in a quick way. He limited U.S. military operations to 1 day. He then did the 1-day regime change operation that wasn't regime change, in Venezuela, where we switched out one communist dictator with another. In Iran, of course, the last 33 days, we've switched out an old geriatric 88-year-old Iranian Ayatollah for his son. We switched out Ayatollah Khomeini for Ayatollah Khomeini, and his son is much more hardline. Reportedly, he's seriously injured, and he's also had his family members murdered, including his wife, his son-in-law, and her daughter-in-law and granddaughter. So he's looking for payback. And Iran has the ability to destroy all U.S. critical infrastructure, either with cyber, super EMP, or nuclear, not nuclear attack. It would have to be cyber, super EMP attack. But Iran does have a capability to nuke U.S. cities from cargo ships, and that's something we don't want to forget about. Trump has made us much less nuclear.
Do you think they have nuclear missiles right now?
Without question, they have nuclear missiles. I can't speak to their location. We know their range is up to 3,000 miles. And actually, if they do have an ICBM class space launch vehicle that has a range of 4,500 miles. So that's likely could be used as a nuclear delivery system. But of course, that can't reach the U.S. from Iranian territory. It would have to be from a cargo ship. But their super EMP satellites, the Nord 2 and Nord 3 satellites, are very likely nuclear equipped with super EMP warheads, and those could be detonated at the push of a button, and those would shut down the power and the light and the food distribution system, the water distribution system here in the U.S. Permanently. There would be no recovery, and we'd lose 200 to 260 million dead Americans within a year, and so. Trump is not. A lot of people, especially Republicans, operate under the illusion that this war against Iran is somehow advancing U.S. national security interests. That somehow it's diminishing an existential threat. It's doing the exact opposite. And you can, just logically, if you think about if Iran or some other country killed, our president, killed half the cabinet, killed the first lady, killed, Ivanka. How would we respond? Bombed our cities, bombed our military. How would we respond? We'd nuke them. There's no question. We'd nuke them. So Iran is, thankfully, the Iranian regime, just like Putin, is more restrained, more rational than Trump and Netanyahu, and they're not going to do that. at least not soon.
Why do you
unless
think they've not done it yet? Why do you think they've not done it yet?
Well, they know that it risks their national suicide. If obviously we have way more nukes than they do, so if it was just a nuclear exchange, they would get annihilated, and we might lose millions, but we'd survive. If they did a super EMP, there's still some latent chance that our NC3 system isn't completely disabled, and we're able to nuke them as well. Cyber attack, I think, is the chance of our nuclear response on our end would be lessened. So I think they will adjudge ultimately, as this war goes on, that they can get away with massive cyber attacks on the U.S. That don't do any physical damage. A super EMP, of course, would shoot our planes out of the air. 1 million Americans would die on day one of a super EMP attack. Cyber, at least that they could, maybe crash land or land without GPS. So
why do you say 1 million people would die from airplanes crashing? Can you explain that? I think I know how, but I want you to explain it to the listeners.
Yeah, so super EMP destroys electronic systems, and of course, electronic systems can, like engines, they could, help run an engines, whether it's a car or whether it's a boat or a plane. And so our planes would essentially be completely disabled if their engine turned off, and they would, have to glide down with no power. And so the chance of them,
I don't think they could glide down. So let me back up. Let me back up your statement. Here's the reason why an EMP happens. The majority of aircraft up in the air today are fly-by-wire. Back in like the DC-3, the DC-10, a lot of those were hydraulic systems. So there's a chance that they could have survived, that they could have glided down. You get rid of the fly-by-wire system, there's no flying. You're toast. It is once it loses its airspeed and dips, it's going down. And so there's no way to input on the control systems. That's toast, because that's electronic. You're done. So that's my statement. So basically every major aircraft you see in the air today that's been put up within the last 20 years, which is the vast majority of the aircraft moving, is fly-by-wire. In fact, I want to say it goes back to like I know the 777 was, I think the 767 was. So everything in Boeing that's 767 and later, the 787, most of the 737s are fly-by-wire. Those systems are toast.
So it wouldn't just be aircraft. It would be obviously cars and trains and buses that would could crash. I mean, obviously, if you lose power in your car, you could if there's no cars in front of you, you can still brake with. I mean, power assisted brakes. I guess if you're able to brake or swerve, you could survive. But there would be massive numbers of accidents and U.S. deaths and injuries. It's just and even if they don't have nukes, they have cyber, and they have I've judged them to be the 5th ranked cyber offensive power in the world, behind North Korea, the U.S. of course, and Russia and China.
All right, so I want to get into some of our questions. Do you think Trump and Iran are actually talking, or the Trump regime is actually talking with Iran? Or, because we hear, oh yeah, they're talking.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard Trump say that from almost the beginning. I mean, if he can, the only talking that's been going on is him begging for a ceasefire and Iran saying no. That's literally all that's gone on. Trump has repeatedly said, they're the ones begging for a ceasefire. He always projects. He's like the Democrats. If he's losing, he claims he's winning. If he's begging for something, he claims the other side's begging for it. He's kind of behaves like a Democrat. Of course, he was a Democrat for 8 years, as he pointed out during the entire Bush administration. But he used to be mostly truthful when he during his first term, during his early second term, and then he's become increasingly less truthful. And with the war in Iran, he literally lies about almost everything he says. Not only did he say that, but he also said that Iran gave us a gift of 20 oil tankers, and we killed their first family, terror bombed their cities, and tried to destroy their military, and they're just going to send out 20 oil tankers, assuming we won't sink them and ship them directly to the United States as a gift, as a tribute. Wanted to thank Trump for all his generosity in killing off their leaders.
And those ships happen to be going to China and India and other countries that Iran was more than happy to help, and is more than happy to help. But we don't hear that any are coming to the United States or to France or to Germany or to the So it's all the places Iran would want them to go, and to none of the places that the United States would want them to go.
Yeah. So we heard on March 23rd, I think, that Trump said that he had a 15-point peace plan, and that Iran had accepted almost every point. We were so close to an agreement. And then over the last 7 days, or 7-8 days, we've heard Iran say almost on a daily basis that they entirely reject our 15-point peace plan, and it's unacceptable and it's unrealistic. So who's telling the truth? Sad to say, I think it's Iran.
Well, the Iranian general getting on and saying that basically that everything that Donald Trump was saying was a bunch of bunk and was lies. Here is one truth that I think Donald Trump said, and he's not getting to the whole truth of, or not letting us know everything behind the statement. He said, Iran keeps on getting new leaders, and they keep on getting killed. It's been reported in the news, especially on the right, on what I'm going to say is the American First news, that we were actually talking to someone on Iran's side, and then Israel decided that they needed to send a missile after him, and so he's dead, and we're no longer talking to him. So I think actually Donald Trump might have been telling the truth of, as soon as we say I'm not saying it might be, because he's not going to say, because Israel takes out whoever we're talking to.
Yeah, he literally said that. He said, well, I can't tell you who we're talking to, or else he'd be killed. And who would kill him? It's Israel. Israel's done most of the killing of their leadership from the Ayatollah on down. And Trump and Republicans just laugh about it. We're just like, oh yeah, we killed their his wife and his daughter and his granddaughter, and it's great, and we love killing, and they're a bunch of terrorists. They all deserve to die, and hopefully the Iranian people will get murdered off. And basically it's just genocidal. It's just very bloodthirsty and murderous. And as the Pope has stated, it's a blatant violation of Christian morality. But thankfully, we're not to the point where, I said terror bombing. That's not quite accurate. I think we killed, the U.S. and Israel have killed maybe 3,500, 3,000 plus Iranians. Obviously, that's not terror bomb level, but we could get that way. And President Trump, of course, has threatened to destroy Iran's power plants, which as we just discussed, it's a really bad idea, because we destroy their power plants,
and
they can destroy ours, and they can destroy the plants. And the water plants, desalinization. Thankfully for the Iranians, I think only around 4% of their water is obtained through desalinization purposes. So, but some of our Gulf allies, it's up to 90 to 100%. So if we, they're going to do basic to our Gulf allies what we do to them. And Trump knows that if we, take out their power plants, they'll do that to the Gulf states minimally. and then the oil shipments from non-Iranian states from the Gulf will go down to zero. But just following up on what you said previously, his 15-point peace plan is dead in the water. And I just published my own 10-point peace plan. I published a 10-point peace plan in mid-February, 2 weeks before the war broke out. And I'm working on an article that incorporates that 10-point peace plan that I just published, that has some of the things that Iran is demanding and some of the things that Trump is demanding that I think could be accepted.
Right towards the end, I want to go over, if you want to share some of those points and go over that. I'd really like to do that if you can. And forgive me, I have not had the chance to read that, but you did text it to me. So I work life and family life was getting in the way right before the show. Literally 3 minutes, well, maybe not 3 minutes, 7 minutes before the show, I had people reaching out to me because it was an emergency. I love you guys. I do. But so here are some of the other points. So Secretary of State got on and said that there were like 4 points that we were trying to do. One is end their ability for missile production, to get rid of, and their drones, also get rid of their nuclear abilities. I forget his 4 points. Rubio, I forget what his 4 points were. Why did that just happen to leave my mind?
I know what they are.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so our war objectives keep changing. Initially, it was regime change, take out their nukes, take out their missiles. Now, now it's something a little bit more realistic. Destroy their air force, destroy their navy. We want to degrade, not destroy, but degrade their ballistic missile capabilities, and then we want to try to degrade their military industrial complex, their war industries as well. So those are the 4. So notably, we took out the nukes. The Trump administration obviously knows that we can't touch their nuclear weapons production because we'd have to essentially invade the country. We'd have to occupy Iran, and then we'd have to search, to where all the nuclear materials were, to try to root those out, because a lot of them are buried deep underground in complexes that, special forces likely couldn't get into, but if they did, they would never be able to get out or be extricated.
Yeah, they probably would be imploded. They would self-sabotage those once those special forces got in. Do you believe that we've actually taken out their missile production?
No, not even close. Certainly, we keep hearing that it's 90% degraded. Well, at the onset of the war, they fired, 10 times what the daily rate is right now. Same with us. So, essentially there was a huge kind of exchange. The U.S., Israel, and Iran had a massive missile and drone exchange, and then it's kind of lowered to a more sustainable rate with the war of attrition that Iran is sure to win, because they have a lot more ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, anti-ship missiles that are supersonic and hypersonic, as well as long-range drones. We have a lot more smaller level drones that are kind of like squad to company level that, travel 4 to 14 miles. They have huge drones that go anywhere from like 250 miles to 1,500 miles, I think, is kind of, maybe even 2,500 miles. Really, really long range drones. So
how did we get to the point where Iran is producing more missiles and drones than the United States?
Well, let me just revise what I just said. So anti-ship missiles, I don't think, they definitely don't have more anti-ship. Well, actually, no, I think they actually do. In terms of, like Tomahawks, if all of those were anti-ship versus land attack, then I think we would outclass them. But most of our Tomahawks are land attack. They're not designed for anti-ship roles, which is a kind of conversion from what it used to be during the Cold War days when the Soviet Navy had more ships than we did. They have a lot of different weapons, missile classes that we don't have. They have mobile missiles. They have supersonic and hypersonic cruise missiles that we don't, anti-ship cruise missiles that we don't have. They have anti-ship ballistic missiles that we don't have. Obviously, super EMP weapons, we've discussed that. There's another missile type I think I'm missing, but essentially that's why I call them a near-peer adversary, is because they have more advanced missiles than we do. Faster and more powerful in terms of conventionally. Obviously, we could obliterate them with in terms of nuclear. We have nuclear supremacy over Iran. No one's questioning that. But as long as the war remains conventional, their ability to inflict pain against the U.S. And our allies is something that they can do over a very prolonged period of time. Whereas the U.S. is very quickly running out of our offensive and defensive missiles, certainly in the medium to long range spectrum.
How does that happen? How does the country? Okay, it's not like Iran is teeny. I want to say it's somewhere between 80 to 90 million people, somewhere in that neighborhood, maybe even the low 90s. How are they outproducing the United States on a military level?
Well, for them, it's more of an existential fight. This is a war for Iran's very existence, for their independence. I mean, Trump. In terms of what the initial stated war objectives were on the U.S. side, it was regime change. It was Iran would become a U.S. colony. We would control the oil. We would pick their leaders. This is what you do with a vassal state. This is what Germany did with countries that had occupied, during World War II. Is it either treat them as a colony, or they would help pick their leaders or have some kind of puppet leader like they did in Norway. So that's basically what Trump is fighting for. He's fighting to transform Iran into a U.S. colony. We control the oil. Therefore, if we control the oil, then China can't get it. It's very imperial. It's very colonialistic, and it's not it's not like we're not fighting for democracy. We're not fighting for humanitarian reasons. We're not fighting to save lives. We're not fighting to liberate the Iranian people. We're fighting to enslave the Iranian people, and that's it's something it's hard to say as an American. Obviously, it's better to enslave a people than to mass murder them. We're not like trying to kill them off like Hitler did the Jews or anything that drastic. But it's not a moral war. It's an unjust, unchristian, unconstitutional, illegal war of aggression that the U.S. has been fighting. And, he didn't get congressional authorization. So, Bush's invasion of Iraq, it was bad, but it was legal in terms of the U.S.
congressional. Yeah.
And it was constitutional because you don't have to declare war. The Congress, my interpretation of the Constitution is, Congress doesn't have to say we declare war. They just have to authorize it. They have to specifically authorize a war. And so if Congress were to come together and say, we authorize this war against Iran, or they call it something else, they call it offensive military action, that would make it a constitutional war. But Trump knows that we don't have the votes to make that happen.
I also want to hit the spiritual side of this, as I start out. Why do I have David Pine on? Why do I have him on? Fellow Christian. He's mentioned here a few times already that this is just not a moral war. I don't believe it is either. I don't believe it's been from the beginning. I believe it's been an offensive war. One of the things that from the very beginning, before the United States, during the Revolutionary War, General Washington said, you need to be on the moral high ground. You need to have the moral high ground. You need to be on moral footing when conducting war. And I don't think, I really don't think that has happened with the war. And I think that's one of the things that bothers so many of Trump's MAGA base that is starting to walk away from him is, it would have been one thing if Iran started the attacks, right? I think it went but both times, and did it. Now, I'm going to say from Israel's standpoint and kind of from the Old Testament, I think people can say that and make the case that if you think your enemy is going to attack you, that it's okay to attack them first. I don't know that I agree and read the Old Testament quite that way either. But the bottom line is this has been an offensive war, and that's one thing the United States historically is supposedly not done. That's what we're not supposed to have done. Although Vietnam, in my opinion, was yeah, Gulf and Tonkin incident was not what we were told it was. And so the when I first give out after the show prayer, I give the mantra, where there is liberty, there is the Spirit of Christ. Well, what is that? What is liberty and what's the Spirit of Christ? It's truth. And I don't feel we're getting truth from Donald Trump or really pretty much any of the other leaders. And the rare bit of truth that we get is him admitting he doesn't want to say who the Iranian leaders that he's talking to, so they don't get killed. He doesn't say the other part by Israel. So any thoughts that you want to follow up along those lines? And then I've got some other questions I'd like to ask you.
Yeah, I think when I was trained as a U.S. Army officer, I was in the ROTC program at BYU during the late 80s and early 90s. And we were taught about just war principles. And, just war principles is what, the U.S. was supposed to fight. You fight a war has a just cause, and you fight it in a just way. And, just cause means it's a war of self-defense or defense of another. And Iran has never directly attacked the U.S. or Israel except after we first attacked them. So that's they never fired a missile from Iran against Israel until 2025. They never fired a missile against the U.S. military base until we attacked them during the 12-day war. And so the idea that this is a 47-year war and Trump's ending it, yes, they killed almost 1,000 Americans through their proxies over a 47-year period. That equates to 21 people a year. China kills 75,000 Americans a year through fentanyl. They killed 1.2 million through COVID. Why isn't Trump bombing China? Why isn't he getting tough with China? Why is he going to China to kiss President Xi Jinping's butt? Essentially,
yeah.
He met with Putin once, and that was great, and then he never did it again. Putin's not a horrible mass murderer like Xi Jinping is, and he's treating the Ayatollah, as the genocidal maniac. No, it's China. China and North Korea are the two most evil countries in the world right now, and Trump's doing nothing about them. He's in some ways appeased them, in other ways he's dealt smartly with them, but he's certainly not confronted them or gone to war with them, and that's a good thing. I'm not a supporter of war, unnecessary war, but the idea that he has to fight this war against Iran because they're a bigger threat than China. I mean, China could destroy us much just as quick and many times over than Iran can, but he doesn't talk about China as a threat. In fact, his national security strategy doesn't refers to China as an economic competitor, and I think there are good reasons for that. But again, the idea that you demonize a smaller country that's still a great power like Iraq or Iran, and claim they're this massive threat to the U.S. when we have all these nuclear weapons, and there's no way that they would ever attack us unprovoked because we have all those nuclear weapons, is just really preposterous.
So one thing that we were told is, our Arab allies in the region are in support of this. Is that a statement you would agree with or disagree with? Because I'm really not hearing in the news that Qatar or Saudi Arabia or anybody else is like, let us join in this, even though they're being attacked in their own in their countries, have been attacked by them. I'm not hearing any of them saying they're going to jump in. And I want to get to also chatting a little bit about what's going on directly in the Strait of Hormuz. Are we going to see any other nations going to come to opening that up?
Well, I think there's multiple questions there, but I think in terms of our Gulf allies, obviously they're a lot smaller and less powerful than Iran, so they want this war to end. Saudi Arabia, there have been conflicting reports that Saudi Arabia may want us to strike Iran harder and finish the job because they're a larger country. But in terms of Qatar and Kuwait and Bahrain and Oman and countries like that, they all want us to end the war. They didn't want us to start this war in the first place because it exposes their countries and their financial systems and economies to near existential threats. So they're likely telling Trump behind the scenes, try to wind this down. Even Lindsey Graham, today he stated that he thinks it's time for Trump to wind down the war and wind up peace negotiations. So, even folks like that, Nikki Haley said that the biggest, she's a neocon war supporter that has never met a war she didn't like. She's saying that Russia's have been the biggest winner of the war so far. So, John Bolton, I think, has said something a little bit similar to that. So even the most hawkish people in the United States that are saying that this is a war that's not going well and that Trump needs to end, or else there'll be major consequences.
It sounds like the narrative is shifting a little bit on this, but definitely at the end of last week there seemed to be a little more talk about boots on the ground. Would any other country join in on boots on the ground and going after some of the islands? And what islands were they talking about going after?
Well, let me just first finish a point that I forgot to make earlier, and that is, our NATO alliance is really suffering because of not one NATO ally is offered to help assist the U.S. in this war. Of course, they're not obligated to because NATO only really applies to Northern Europe Europe and the North Atlantic. But Trump has kind of made some threats about maybe leaving NATO, and Italy just today I think it was reported that Italy refused our planes to refuel because they oppose this war so much. So even a conservative-led country like that is doing that. But can you repeat your question?
I think it just went out of my head. Boots on the ground. We were told kind of towards the end of the last week, what islands would they hit? What islands were they looking to take over? Do you think there will be boots on the ground? What do you think would happen if that scenario comes to play? Because we've got thousands of Marines and 82nd Airborne, I believe, also going to that area.
Yeah, so Trump reportedly, kind of in the mid-March to late March timeframe, came up with a plan to invade Kark Island. In fact, there's clips from him in 1987, saying we seize Iran's oil. We when he was mulling running for president in '88, he talked about seizing the oil, seizing Kark Island. And it's really a foolish endeavor that would get a lot of troops killed. He's mobilized. He was sent 2 Marine Expeditionary Units, one from California and one that's already in the Arabian Sea. That's about I think 2,500 troops each in terms of combat Marines. So that's around 5,000. Then he's mobilized another I think 3,000 to 4,000 of 82nd Airborne Rapid Reaction Brigade. That's up to 4,000. So right there, you got up to 9,000. Then he's set another up to 10,000. So basically, you have about 17,000 ground troops that he's sending in addition to what we already had there, which was 40 to 50,000 troops, not ground troops, probably a lot of Air Force folks and sailors that were based in the region, ready to invade Kark Island. The problem is the Strait of Hormuz is 22 miles in width. So it's really the approximate length of the Strait of Dover in the English Channel. And we know that Hitler was unable, he was, for all of Germany's power, he was unable to cross the English Channel to invade England. The U.S. Navy, of course, remains the most powerful conventional fleet in the world. And yet Trump, ever since that missile strike on the carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, it's been falling back to 1,000-kilometer distance from the Iranian mainland because of the anti-ship missile threat. So if Trump knows, or he has reason to know, that if we send amphibious assault ships through the Strait of Hormuz, they'll either get sunk when they're traversing the strait, or around the time that they drop off the Marines, and then we could lose thousands of American Marines, airborne troops, and sailors dead and wounded in a single day. We could easily have more troops die in a single day of a Karg Island invasion than we did during 20 years of fighting the war in Afghanistan.
Some people are correlating trying to hit one of those islands to overtaking Iwo Jima. And
I think that's accurate. Iwo Jima was actually smaller than Karg Island. So, and we lost 35,000 dead.
100,000 troops to take out, I want to say it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000 Japanese. I mean, so that's, we're looking at a similar situation. It's not like they aren't dug in and they aren't ready to defend those islands if attacked.
So I have one more point to add on that. So the latest intel I have is that Trump reportedly has told his team that he wants to cancel the Karg Island invasion. He actually understands that reportedly that would prolong the war by many months. So he kind of has this time frame. He's delayed the summit with the Beijing summit with Xi Jinping until I think May 14th. And so he stated he's told his advisors he wants this war over in weeks, before mid-May. The problem is it's not a U.S. decision. I mean, it is if we accept Iran's peace terms, if we capitulate to their terms, if we push an agreement along the lines of what I just published, I think that's doable. But the 15-point peace plan obviously has been completely rejected. And I haven't seen the U.S. made any concessions on that thought yet. Obviously, the only concession I think that we've seen is that President Trump stated that Iran gets to keep the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, which automatically that means that a massive U.S. strategic defeat, because the objective of a war is you want to achieve a political outcome that's better than the one that you started with. So with Iran, I guess that's it's kind of a mixed bag. But with the U.S., it would be a loss by any means, because Iran has never controlled the Persian Gulf. They've never controlled the Strait of Hormuz. Now they're basically, asking for $2 million per ship just to transit. So they're getting rich off this. There was an expert, Robert Pape, professor at the University of Chicago, has stated that Iran stands to make an additional 45 billion a year in the coming year, over and above what they were anticipated to make, based on oil costs being higher per barrel, and then of course the transit fees, as well as the fact that Trump has lifted sanctions on Iranian oil tankers. He's lifted sanctions on Iranian tankers, Russian tankers. So Russia's going to make 55 billion more than they would have made with sanctions. Iran's making 45 billion more, and the total defense budget of Iran, I think, was 25 billion last year. So basically, we are providing them with 170% of what their defense budget was last year. So we're funding the war in Ukraine. We're funding the war against the U.S. and Israel, and it just shows what a poor precedent Trump has been in terms of fighting wars.
When it comes to this, he's totally blown it. Blown it. Okay, so had we gone boots on the ground, Israel said that they weren't going to be joining in.
Israel wants us to be the cannon fodder. They in fact, also in news today, I think Benjamin Netanyahu made another statement that Israel is becoming a global superpower, because basically they have the U.S. military as their army of mercenaries. They tell us where to go, and we do it without question. So we're like a battering ram. Basically, we're like Ukraine for the U.S. and NATO against Russia. we're doing all the dying essentially in terms of our troops, while Israel sits pretty.
I I want to get so one thought that I have with NATO. I would love to say Donald Trump just go, okay, we're done, NATO. Um, this is the only thing I would give Donald Trump is if he said we're pulling out because you guys didn't come to help out of all the years of all the support and all the bases and all the men and funding that we've done for you guys, you don't come to help. Okay, we're done. It's time to pull out because it's not, in my opinion, it's not an equal setting. Now, I will give NATO this. I don't disagree with them not being involved. Let me be clear on that. I'm glad that they're not trying to increase the and escalate with the United States and letting us say that you're on your own, because I think it will bring an end. So speaking of bringing an end to this, I want to make sure that you can talk about your Substack that you put out and your 10-point plan, because I want to hear how you think we can get this done and get our way out of this.
Yeah, so it starts out with, I think, kind of mutual respect, kind of a mutual non-interference agreement and non-aggression pact. Non-aggression pact meaning that the U.S. doesn't attack Iran doesn't attack us, either directly or indirectly, and ideally we pull in Israel and Iranian proxies in there as well, and basically say that Iran will stop sending arms to Iranian proxies like Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, as long as Israel stops attacking Iran and their proxies, their allies. So that's one thing. In terms of the missiles,
I ask you a question on that? Do you
Sure.
think? I don't think Israel would honor that.
No, I don't.
They would dynamite that right off the bat.
Yeah, Trump would. I don't think it's. I think it's a good idea to try to rope in Israel into something like that. But I don't think, with Netanyahu in charge, I don't think they would agree to it. If it was like more of a centrist Israeli leader, I think they would. But Netanyahu is he's just such a warmonger. He would never agree to that unless. And I don't even know that Trump could pressure Israel to do that. I think he would basically have to say, look, we're going to stop all weapons shipments and intelligence sharing with you, and kick all your Israeli spies out of the Pentagon for him to really go for that. So I think you're right about that. With regards,
I don't think Donald Trump knows to do that, David, or am I wrong?
I think he's afraid to. I think he's afraid to cross Netanyahu. I mean, there certainly was. I'm trying to think when it was. It was about a year to a year and a half ago when he basically called Netanyahu and effing something, or he published something that was highly offensive to Netanyahu, and it was kind of like the Zelensky thing, when he was talking about Zelensky as a clown, a little dictator, and I think that was one of the times that he actually did that. And there was another point during this 12-day war when he seemed to exert some level of independence. And that's right. It was Netanyahu who violated the ceasefire that he negotiated, and he was really pissed about that. But yeah, for the most part, he's just been Netanyahu's poodle, and it's just the dog walking we see going on. Netanyahu says
a very good way to put it.
Yeah, he's just like
a very good way to put it.
We're like a Doberman pitcher or whatever. I'm not a dog guy, so I'm not great on dog analogies, I guess.
Well, I would say Netanyahu is treating Donald Trump like Trump is the poodle. That is a very good way to put it. I would completely agree with it. What are some of the other points?
Yeah, in terms of missiles, I think they would agree to get rid of. They have like 2 to 3 IRBM classes of missiles, one of which, of course, was demonstrated against Diego Garcia with a range of 3,000 miles. That's kind of their max range for IRBMs. Then they have that ICBM class space launch vehicle. I think we could get them to, if we gave them concessions on a lot of other areas. I think we could get them to get rid of those. With regards to their nuclear program, I mean, again, I think they already have nukes. A modest nuclear arsenal could be 12, it could be 100. We just don't know how many nukes they have. It's much less than Israel. It's much less than the U.S. It shouldn't be a factor except for the Super EMP satellites. So we tell them they can't. They have to commit to never produce a single, even one more nuclear weapon. They have to give up all their highly enriched uranium to Russia. They have to allow for IAEA inspections that are unfettered and unlimited, essentially. So those are important points. With regards to our 13 bases, I think we commit to never rebuilding them. We vacate those 13 bases we already have, essentially, in the Persian Gulf. Then we commit to never have any ships in the Persian Gulf or military presence outside of maybe reconnaissance flights and drones and that type of stuff. And they have to commit to keep the straits open at all times. They can't ever blockade it. They can't ever limit ships. They can have a toll booth. That's the most we give them, and that would be, I think, that would satisfy them. They want to say, basically, us to say, yeah, it's yours. We're not going to say that, right? But in terms of we can say that in all but words, basically, in terms of the agreement. And then reconstruction, they're wanting reparations. I think we say no to that. We say that we'll help rebuild. We'll finance the reconstruction of civilian infrastructure that were damaged or destroyed, but we'll do it with U.S. companies. So we're paying U.S. Citizens to do the work. I think that would be acceptable to them. So they want a conflict. They want a deal that includes Israel. Obviously, they don't want us to leave the war and then have Israel keep bombing them, because they're going to keep fighting back, obviously. And they don't want it. They want Israel out of Lebanon. They want to, obviously, they want Hezbollah to survive. They want Israel out of Gaza. Although I think that's not really a big issue for them right now, because there is a ceasefire in place and Israel's withdrawn, from 55% of Gaza's territory. But obviously they want, that to be more enforced. So those are some of the main points that I don't have in front of me, so I don't remember everything that I published, but those are some of the main points that I covered.
Do you think Donald will wind up doing? Do you see Donald Trump in a stepping back mode? Are we stepping away from the brink of disaster? And why do I say it's the brink of disaster, folks? I'm really concerned about, where does the Battle of Armageddon supposedly begin? Right in that area. I am very concerned that we are looking at World War III. Your thoughts?
Yeah, my very next article I'm going to publish after this piece article is basically, are we already in World War III? And essentially, there's a good argument you can make that we're already in World War III, because, of course, World War II, rather, people say that it started with the Japanese invasion of China or Manchuria many years before. Of course, that's not true. They were two separate wars. But the point is, a lot of the folks that were in World War II didn't know it was World War II right off the bat, because it was still very, very focused. Obviously the German invasion of Poland, that was essentially the entire war for, I think, 7-8 months. For 7-8 months of the war, there was the Sitzkrieg on the Western Front, where they didn't even exchange artillery fire. There was this, the French occupied, I think, 7 miles deep into German-held territory, and then they withdrew. So I think this war it's a major regional war. It's a great power war. It's a war with a near peer competitor, something we haven't seen for 73 years. And it's a war that I think there's a very high chance it's never going to end. And when I say never going to end, I mean it's going to morph into a wider war. And there's a couple possibilities for what that could be. It could be that it is a vertical escalation, where it escalates to a cyber super EMP war, where the U.S. homeland gets destroyed. Or it could be a horizontal escalation in which China invades Taiwan, because we're so much weaker militarily in that region. North Korea invades South Korea. I don't think Russia would mess with NATO. I don't think they really have any interest with that. But certainly they might feel emboldened to reoccupy key oblasts and finish the job with Ukraine. With Ukraine being starved of weapons and Zelensky, of course, being too stupid to know when the war is lost. So I think this, and then once that happens, the risks of us getting involved in a shooting war with China are much higher, or even perhaps North Korea. So this is really this war is, I think it's already going to be the death knell of the American empire, perhaps certainly the petrodollar if we don't end it soon. The irony is Trump has wanted to end it since night one of the war. He's been sending peace feelers to Iran. The problem is he wants a ceasefire and they want a comprehensive peace agreement because he's proven how duplicitous he is. He's negotiating, with Iran in the middle of negotiations. He kills off their heads of state, their head of state, their first family. Top 50
was
leaders.
it the United States that did that, or was it Israel? And you could say, well, it's one and the same, but
that's a good point. So everyone says it's Trump, but basically it was Trump that kind of gave the go ahead. I mean, Israel, maybe Netanyahu was going to do it anyway, but I'm sure he was waiting on, Trump to say, yeah, I agree with that. We'll help you out, and what Trump should have done is told Iran, hey, we're not saying anything, but if you and Israel get involved in a shooting war, we're going to stay out. We're going to stay neutral. Because we hear from Rubio, from Trump, why'd you get into this war? Why'd you start at the time you did? And they're like, well, Israel was going to start the war, and we knew that Iran would, we're going to hit back our bases. And of course, what do? They ensured by bombing Iran that our bases would be wiped out. So the very reason, we're fighting the war to save our bases from being attacked is what they guaranteed by attacking Iran. So basically all the justifications are complete nonsense. But I think the truth part is that Rubio stated, and Trump has stated since, is that Israel forced us in the war one way or the other because they said, hey, there's this golden opportunity to assassinate the Ayatollah. He's going to be above ground. He's going to be out of his bunker on the February 28th. And as you suggested, if you don't do anything, we're gonna go without you, type of thing. So I think that's very possible that was the case. And Trump just said, well, I guess we'll help you out if and then that's why the war has been so badly fought. In terms of certainly the military has performed exceptionally well, but at the strategic level, there's been no strategy. The objectives have been all over the place. Why? Because I think Israel gave us 3 days notice and said, hey, we're going to war in 3 days. Are you with us? Or you stay out? And we decided to get in, and Netanyahu promised Trump a 7-day war, and he's gotten a 33 or 34-day war so far. And it's really going to, I think
Netanyahu knew from the very beginning how long this was going to last. I think he knew it was going to be a month long. I wish Donald Trump would have called up Fox News and said, Netanyahu just told me he's going to attack Iran, and just so everybody knows, they're on their own. Netanyahu may not even have pulled the trigger.
Yeah, Iran would have touched us if he said that.
What's that?
Iran would never have touched us. They would have never launched a single drone or missile at us if he had done that.
Yeah, maybe we'll get into it next time. The kind of the Zionist position of supporting Israel and what that means, but I'm going to give a quick synopsis. Jesus Christ told us that by coming to him, we have all become part of Israel. And so I'm going to leave it at that. So kind of the party message that I want to say is, folks, I'm concerned about this. I have 3 sons that are draftable age right now. Actually 2 and 1 that's about to become, and the military would love to get a hold of all 3 of my boys. One of them might stay here in the United States because he's an electrician. He may be able to stay in place, but the bottom line is, I don't want to see people dying in Iran. I don't want to see people dying in Israel. And I want to pray for So I'm praying to the King of Peace, Jesus Christ, that he will set in Donald Trump's heart, and that the spirit will even go into Netanyahu. And frankly, I think I have more faith in Iran stepping back than Netanyahu right at this point. So those are my points. Pray for peace, folks, and pray for it starting in our own in the United States, because I notice things are getting ramped up with the no kings type stuff. I could see that all coming together. So those are my thoughts. I'm going to let you finish with your thoughts, David, and then we'll call it a day.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. We just have so much agreement on this. That the U.S. should only be fighting moral wars, wars of self-defense. I mean, for those folks that are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I mean, it says right there in the Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, the Book of Mormon says that the Nephites didn't fall until they went up against the Lamanites. And then in the Doctrine and Covenants, it's section 93, it says, the Lord said, renounce war and proclaim peace. So we're a church of peace. The Catholic Church is a church of peace. We need to unite as Christians to try to end this war and do everything we can to pressure our members of Congress to do their constitutional duty that they've abdicated and rein in this out of control president. And President Trump's, I mean, he's not going to be a great president by any means, but at this point, but he can certainly return to putting America first and limit the damage that this will do on his presidential legacy. But the only way he's going to do it is essentially by declaring victory and accepting most of Iran's peace terms.
Declare victory, Donald Trump, and accept all of Iran's terms.
Most of them did.
I hope that he's going to say, "Oh, by the way, we sent in the SEALs and they found the uranium and we're done. We're backing out." I don't know. There's been that statement too. So
Yeah.
I'm going to leave this with this. David Pine, so grateful for you. I hope we're chatting again in 3 weeks about how Donald Trump finally decided to get out of this. What we can do to let Israel not control the United States so much. The bottom line is the United States will fall because of what goes on in the nation and allowing people from the outside to try to control us. We need to follow the God of this land is Jesus Christ, folks. The Lord of this land is Jesus Christ. It's in the Constitution, Section 7. Our founders knew the Lord of this land was Jesus Christ. We need to turn to him for the solutions, just like the president of El Salvador has done. Look at the peace they've created in their nation. They went from being the worst place basically in the world to one of the safest places. So those are my thoughts. David Pine, thanks for being a great American, a great patriot, and thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, John. You're a great patriot as well.
All right, I'm going to talk to you real quick offline. And folks, this has been Talk with John. We will see you next week. Thank you for your time. And here on KMMU